everybody, and welcome to the new installment of the Unlikely Builder. Here I'm putting the spindle in the lower control arm. I'm torquing the castle nut, and you discovered that unfortunately the spindle wants to move around, so I had to use a crowbar to hold it steady while I was torquing the castle nut. Once that is done, you can put the pin in it, and that's it. So it's fairly simple. Now the next part, it's also simple. It just will require a little bit of manhandling, which is putting the ball joint of the upper control arm into the spindle. The reason being that the ball joint obviously is not aligned, so you gotta align it and push it in. But very, very simple. So here I am doing exactly that. And there you go. And once that is done, I had to tighten the castle nut, but unfortunately the torque wrench did not fit in there, so I had to go a bit by feeling. I looked online, a lot of people do that, but that's a bit of I try to do it as best as I can, but I realized this is kind of touchy, but that's what I had to do. Here I'm putting the cotter pin, and now you have a suspension that actually works because the two arms are connected and the coilover is engaging if you move it around, so that's good. Here I'm putting the steering arm. The only thing is that the steering arm, it's what you think it's on the left and needs to go on the right, because FactoryFive uses the same for some other of their cars, and so you got to remember that. But once it's in, you torque it. It's fairly simple, and you have a spindle with the steering arm. Now this was the toughest part, which was putting in the hub. The hub really doesn't want to go in. It was a tight fit. They told me, everybody says it online. I didn't expect it to be such a tight fit and so difficult. So I eventually did it, but it took a while. So here I'm just showing this done, and now I'm very happy. I'm putting in the nut. You gotta torque it to a very high torque. Took some doing, and then here I'm putting the dust cover, and that's it. Here I'm tying the sliding pin to the caliper of the front brake. So I'm torquing it. This is where the caliper and the bracket slide onto each other. So I thought it was going to be more complicated. It's actually fairly easy. Hopefully it's going to work. I didn't forget something, but it looks like it's working. I'm putting here the rubber cover because the pin has all the grease and you want it to be kind of sealed between that and the caliper and the bracket. So here I'm putting the tabs on the bracket, and here the anti-chatter on the caliper. So not difficult, just push it in, some wiggle in, and it's done. I put some grease on the tabs and on the anti-chatter clip, just to make sure that things were sliding well. Here the blue thing that you see is the grease that comes with the brakes. You slide the caliper into the bracket, and then you put the rubber cover in so that that part is sealed. So once that is done, you can put in the brake pads, which is what I'm doing here. The brake pads, make sure that they slide well. That's where some extra anti-seize was useful. And then here I made a mistake, is if you can see the rotor is kind of moving around. I should have put a lug nut. I did it for everything else once I figured it out. If I had put a lug nut, it would have stayed upright, but I didn't. So no big deal. It just took much longer than I thought in wiggling and making sure the two things tied together. But eventually I was able to do it. The bracket ties to the spindle that you installed with the two bolts that here I am hand tightening, and then I tightened a little more, and then I torqued it. So with that done, you basically have a front suspension and the brake done. So next episode we're going to start talking about the rear, and it's going to be a lot of work. So please subscribe, and let's go to the next one.